Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is June 3rd at 10:05 a.m. and we are going to begin with our home ARP public forum. Thank you for those of you who have joined. So far this morning at 10:05, we have Craig Wong, co-chair of the COC, George Asante, who runs the Mount Vernon Office of Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, Alicia and Mike from the Guidance Center, and Elias, who works for our City Council. So thank you all for joining us. And with that, Craig, would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you everybody for attending. We're in I believe, a very exciting time. The state and the federal government have released millions of dollars for us to be able to serve our communities. So it's a wonderful time. It's an exciting time, and we all want to do the best we can. I appreciate the city of Mount Vernon. I appreciate Sylvia for this opportunity to provide comments. I appreciate the relationship we have, working together, collaborating, running things by one another. Also that we can do the best we can to serve our communities, which is what it's all about. It's about collaboration. It's about communication. It's really about serving the population who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. So I appreciate that. I appreciate this forum. And thank you, Sylvia, and your team for all that you guys are doing for Mount Vernon, for our community. We appreciate our collaboration. I am the co-chair of Westchester County Continuum of Care. I'm also a program administrator with Westchester County Department of Social Services. And so, thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to begin by sharing my PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll open up for any public comments and any questions that anyone may have. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as many of you know, we had received an ESG CV allocation in 2020 of $1.8 million to prepare to address homeless needs in the city of Mount Vernon. And in 2020 and 2021, we had received annual funds of approximately $145,000 each year. For 2022, our ESG eligibility status has changed. The formula requires that any recipient allocation amount that is less than 0.5% gets reallocated to the state. So we are at less than 0.05%. So the funds that we would be normally allocated are being reallocated to the state of New York for fiscal year 2022. We have 5 program components under the ESG CV. We have a street outreach component, and to date, the street outreach team has been in contact with 105 homeless individuals and have connected them either with resources or help place them at emergency shelters. So that's a pretty high number for the city. And thank you to the street outreach team that has joined us today for all of your hard work. We also have a rapid rehousing program through the Guidance Center and to administer a rapid rehousing program for those individuals who are unsheltered. So connecting them from the street outreach team, the unsheltered, and place them in rapid rehousing. And to date, we have 12 homeless clients enrolled in the rapid rehousing program. And then we also have a homeless prevention program. So these are youth who are under the age of 24 who are at risk of homelessness or who are homeless. And to date, there are 14 youth who have been enrolled and are receiving rental assistance. And then we also have 2 domestic violence program components. One is a domestic violence rapid rehousing assistance program. And to date, we have 2 families who are currently housed and supported through this program. We have 7 individuals that were selected. Of the 7, there are 4 who have obtained an EHV voucher, and the remaining 3 have applied and are currently on the waiting list. So one of the things we did was every domestic violence client that was elected to participate in this program, we made sure to immediately have them apply for the emergency housing voucher, which is rental assistance for 9 years. And so we made that strategic decision, not only with our rapid rehousing program, but also with our homeless prevention program. So we had 10 individuals who were fleeing domestic violence. Of those 10 that we had as a target for this program, 7 of them have been placed through homeless prevention. 3 of them have obtained an EHV voucher, and the 4 have applied and are on the waiting list. So we're particularly proud of the work we're doing around our domestic violence programs as well, because it's the first time the city has run such a program in partnership with Mental Health Association. And we immediately turned around to make sure we had enrolled them in EHV. So thank you, Craig, and West Ham and all the other partners who have worked with us to make this possible. So these ESG clients represent some of the most vulnerable populations. So we went and purposely targeted the most vulnerable populations in the city. And then now we segue into the Home American Rescue Plan Act. Part of what the purpose of this is to address the needs of the most vulnerable populations. So the people who we have enrolled and their families, households that are enrolled in ESG are the same populations that are being targeted to be part of the Home ARP program. We were allocated $1.8 million in Home ARP funds. And in our 2021 annual action plan, we had said that we were considering allocating the Home ARP funds for tenant-based rental assistance and having these funds available to place the individuals in our households who may need this resource once the ESG CV grant funds are fully expended. We anticipate expending our ESG CV allocations by September of 2022. And so in the spirit of what the Home ARP grant is intended to do, we're looking to house the most vulnerable people in Mount Vernon. We have a great deal of housing instability in the city. Based on our needs assessment analysis, it shows that approximately 25% of the city faces housing instability. So as we work to look at transitioning these households from ESG-CV to the Home ARP program, we're addressing 2 challenges. 1, we're serving people who are recently homeless. And 2, we're providing assistance to renter households who are extremely low income and are considered at greatest risk of housing instability. And so you can look at the data under our needs assessment, which is on page 11 of our draft Home ARP plan, which shows you what the data points indicate. So what we're trying to do here is in alignment with what our needs assessment shows. And in our proposed budget, we're looking to allocate $290,000 for supportive services. So this can be job training programs, it can be childcare, it can be legal resources. There's a whole host of things we can do under supportive services. We think that's incredibly important because in addition to helping people with rental assistance, what we also want to do is make sure that these households become self-sufficient once these funds are fully expended. And then we're looking to allocate 1.1 million towards rental assistance. We estimate we can provide assistance somewhere between 20 and 30 households for a 2-year period. And then we have set aside funds for nonprofit operating and nonprofit capacity building. So, these funds can be used for case management. And then under capacity building, it is to do trainings if the nonprofit organizations need to do trainings, as well as to hire new staff. And then the city is looking to retain the admin funds. And then in terms of, so we're looking to cover 100% of rent and utility costs for these participants. And as we said earlier, here are some of the things that can be covered under supportive services. So substance abuse treatment services, job training, food, case management, credit repair. So there's a whole host of things here that could be covered. And I'm also going to move forward and talk about our projected timeline. So we're required to do public consultation, and we were part of a forum that took place where it was the city of Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, Yonkers, and the COC on January 11th. We released our home ARP plan on May 16th. And we have a 30-day public comment period that ends June 17th. We're only required to do 15 days, but we're doing 30. We're having the virtual meeting today, and then we're also having in-person public meeting on June 9th. So we are encouraging residents of the city to participate in that meeting. And then we're looking to submit our report to HUD on July 1st. Really deep things in this book. It sounds like and so for me and for all. And with that, I'd like to open it up to answer any questions or to get any feedback on what we are looking to do with these funds.
It is to help other people. Where are you now on your sobriety journey? Where are you now?
Any questions, any feedback? And George, I don't know if you want to talk about our eviction numbers as well.
Sure. Great presentation, Sylvia, and pretty much all of the questions I would have had, I saw in the PowerPoint. Definitely appreciate being here, and thank you for the invite. As far as, I guess I'll introduce myself and then get into the numbers that we've been seeing so far. I'm George Asante. I'm the attorney in charge of the Mount Vernon office at Legal Services Hudson Valley. For those who don't know, Legal Services Hudson Valley is a sole provider of free civil legal services for individuals and families who cannot afford attorneys when their basic human needs are at stake. These urgent matters and legal needs include housing emergencies, eviction and foreclosure prevention, domestic violence, orders of protection, child custody, healthcare, children's advocacy, disability and benefits, elder law, consumer, and much, much more. As far as evictions from rental housing in Westchester County, it's a countywide epidemic. Historically, Mount Vernon has been disproportionately impacted by this epidemic. And in 2019, there were 9,344 eviction petitions filed in the county city courts. Of that 9,344, 7,000 were from Mount Vernon and Yonkers. And in 2020, 2021, 2022, despite court closure, numerous moratorium, and legislation directed at stopping and halting evictions, filing still persisted. In 2020, there were 3,866 eviction petitions filed in the county city courts. Of that 3,866, 1,022 were from the city of Mount Vernon. Through May of this year, May of 2022, there have been 2,305 new eviction petitions filed in the county city courts. Of that 2,305 filings, 513 were from the city of Mount Vernon. The numbers are staggering. And one of the things that I wanted to share is that legal representation is a critical part of homelessness prevention and eviction prevention as well. And that eviction is not solely about rental arrears, it's about the gross inequity between landlords and tenants, which can have catastrophic effects for low-income families. Unrepresented tenants, they sometimes unknowingly sign agreements that result in their family becoming homeless. This can happen in court in less than 2 minutes. Additionally, in a majority of the non-payment cases, there's always almost a defense, including imposition of improper rent amounts, fees, repair issues, improper recertifications, improper rent registrations, and violations of federal housing law. And without representation, payment of rental arrears occurs with little or no oversight and verification. And though mediation has its benefit, there's no substitute for the legal piece and legal representation. The attorneys at Legal Services are experts in this area, and we specialize in all sorts of litigation, particularly holdovers where it's not about the money, and it results in keeping families in their homes, stabilizing housing, stabilizing families, etc. And one of the more important things I wanted to talk about too is that studies have shown that families who are evicted suffer permanent trauma, losing their independence and dignity. Children lag far behind their peers in educational outcomes and suffer serious health consequences. And often these effects are often irreversible. So I guess my main comment is, let's all work together, let Mount Vernon thrive, keep residents in their home and out of homeless shelters, prevent evictions, prevent homelessness, let legal services help the city in doing this. And I think our common goal, our common vision to stabilize family could be sort of the beginning of a strong partnership between legal services and the city of Mount Vernon.
Thank you, George. And so that those numbers are staggering. And what it also shows is the homelessness issue in Westchester County is different from the homelessness issue challenges that the city of Mount Vernon faces. Ours is a great deal of housing instability, and we've seen it on the needs assessment that was done. And how do we work to ensure that those who are most vulnerable, that we enhance the housing stability in the city? So that's something we need to really look at, because the numbers are incredibly staggering that you have just shown. And for us to see that 25% of the city faces housing instability is staggering, to see those numbers for the city as a whole. So what we're trying to do is to ensure that we address the needs of the most vulnerable, looking at what the needs assessment tells us, looking at who are currently enrolled in these ESG programs, but also not to just have it be exclusively for them, but to open it up to anyone else who is part of the qualifying populations. We would look at providing those preferences to them, depending on the input that we receive from the city and residents of the city and other stakeholders, but also ensure that we open it up to anyone who meets those qualifying populations, which is that's how we're looking to design our program. Alicia and Mike, there is a question in the chat about Hubcap Park, and can you address that? Because I know you have spent a lot of time doing street outreach all over the city. I don't know, Mike or Alicia, if you want to answer that question that's in the chat.
Let me just read the question.
Can you read it out loud?
Is there an effort to address some of the homeless encampments such as Hubcap Park at South Fulton and 3rd? There are regular testimonies from residents around the space. The individuals who inhabit the space do not appear amenable to housing. Okay, actually, Mike would know best about this, but so Mike, are you able to unmute? Let me see. I'm not sure if he can, but so my understanding is that not everyone in that park is actually homeless. And there are maybe mental health or substance use issues. Our outreach people have engaged with them, and we're actually handing out flyers for resources that the Guidance Center has for substance abuse and mental health services. So we're hoping to engage them into services. But again, not everybody there is actually homeless. Let me see if Michael could add.
Yeah, he just responded that most people there are not homeless and just hanging out.
Yeah, so anybody that is homeless, I mean, we've engaged with and, offered services and housing too, but anyone who is not homeless, we're still working to engage and try to help them with, other mental health services or substance use services.
Thank you. Elias, does that answer your question? Okay. Any other comments or questions? Any other feedback that anyone would like to provide?
Thank you, Sylvia, again for a presentation. Very good presentation. I think it's a great plan. It's a well-rounded plan. Homelessness, preventing homelessness is not an easy feat. It's not an easy task to address. But when you look at the plan that you presented, you talk about supportive services, things like employment, training, and daycare and supports. Those things all help. So I think it's great. You talk about street outreach, which is critical. Rapid rehousing, helping folks pay their rent. At the same time, helping them to be able to meet the rent when the subsidy ends is critical. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you to the city of Mount Vernon.
Well, and Craig, and thank you for saying that, but one of the things we had talked about just recently in the last week, where the city of Mount Vernon works very closely with our COC. We have a very strong and collaborative relationship. And one of the things we talked about under the COC was looking at employment, training, and increasing income. And so that's going to be incredibly important. And one of the things I'd like to ask you, and you're wearing your co-chair hat of the COC, is let's look at developing a plan across the county to how we can help these most vulnerable populations so that they become self-sufficient. What do those job training programs look like, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And if we can have a more concerted effort to help flesh that out and look at what some of those emerging industry needs are, sectors are, so that we can help ensure that there are training opportunities. I think that's something we need to do now and in the future.
Absolutely. We have a VOCAD representative on our board, and they actually have an office in Mount Vernon. And of course, we have our local district office also located in Mount Vernon. We have tons of resources for vocational education, employment services. So absolutely.
And George, can you submit your comments in writing so I can include it as part of the official record when I submit this to HUD? Our goal is to submit this on July 1st.
Absolutely. I'll send something over.
Okay, thank you. Elias, do you have any other questions or feedback? Anyone else? Okay. One question, Alicia, can you talk about who those 105 people are that the street outreach team has touched?
Well, really, Michael will have more of the details, but I would say they're obviously everyone from Mount Vernon, the hardest to engage. As Elias said, some people are a little hesitant to accept housing, so it does take a lot from our outreach team to work on engagement and building that trust before people will accept housing. And a lot of the times, if you don't understand where they're coming from, and people think that if you walk up to someone and say, oh, hey, I could help you with housing, that they're going to say, oh, that's what I need, let me just go. But that is really not the case. And the outreach team really works together. We have the night outreach and the day outreach, and they both, tag team and work together to build that trust. And it takes a lot of time and effort to engage these individuals. And then if there's a combination of mental health and substance use on top of the homelessness, then it's even more challenging. So our outreach team really works extremely hard, and they're extremely good at engagement and really connecting people to, whether it's getting them the resources, getting them into a shelter, or putting them into housing. And as we know, housing is very scarce in Westchester County, and being able to afford that. So this, ARP is very important to be able to provide those subsidies. And I really do think it's wonderful that you have all the extra support kind of services, because it isn't only about getting people into housing and paying the rent, but helping people to move on and grow and be able to learn, get employment, and this is what the guidance center is also about. So we are happy to work and collaborate with you, because we also have, vocational services and some educational supports and things like that as well. So I think this is going to be wonderful for the city of Mount Vernon, and for those. Every week our outreach team meets another homeless person. So we're at 105 right now, but there's always more to come, and that's really sad, but it's the truth. They're working hard to help. So we collaborate with you.
No, thank you. And those numbers are incredibly high. Mike, I don't know if you can.
I can hear you. I finally got my audio working. So, well, from what I heard so far, because I'm not sure what was the last question, because I had to rejoin.
So who are those 105 people who have you?
Oh, those are all Mount Vernon residents. Yeah, we come into contact with from all over, actually, from not just the gazebo and all that stuff, because a lot of people in the gazebo like to hang out, because I know that was the last question. They just like to hang out there, not everyone there, but we find them from the Wall to Hartley Park to sometimes even Wilson Woods, but we've been engaging with a lot of them, especially more recently than before, because I think because it's getting a lot warmer outside. So you're starting to see a lot more people outside, where we can engage them. But they're nearly they're all Mount Vernon residents.
So are these folks who are chronically homeless? Or are these folks who recently became homeless?
Some recently became homeless. Some are chronically homeless. Because proving homelessness can be difficult sometimes. When it comes to that. But some recently homeless where they just had no other place to go, and they lost their apartment or something. So we had to either take them to the drop-in or assist them with other stuff. One of the guys that we engaged with, he's been homeless for like 30 years. I don't want to say his name here, but he was living under a bridge, and he was been there for a little bit. So right now we're working with him really hard, because we didn't have a lot of paperwork for him and all that stuff. So we had to connect with the family and all of that, just to try to see if we can connect them with resources and get him housing as quickly as possible. And the county's aware of it. The county's aware of it as well, because they want to house them as quickly as possible too. And we were able to prove that. And we're also working with the other lady that's living out of our car in the Target Mall area over there by Sanford Boulevard on the second floor of the parking lot. Working to try to get her housed as quickly as possible too.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your work on that, because our PIT numbers were very low. And then the PIT numbers, I think, showed us at 12 this year versus what you're seeing over the work that you've done over the past year at 105. So those numbers don't necessarily reflect what is really happening in the city.
That's correct.
And so some of these are chronically homeless people, and then some of them are people who may have just gone through an eviction, right? So there are different circumstances, different challenges, and we've seen that these numbers are high. And so it speaks to the housing instability in the city and how we're trying to be able to respond in an impactful manner. And so we're going to have to really look and see how we continue funding the street outreach program that we currently have. And I'm assuming that each one of these individuals who are homeless at the 105, you put them in the coordinated entry system, so they're being tracked.
We put everyone in a coordinated entry system the moment that they sign up with us.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, thank you
as long as they signed up with us. We sometimes work with them without them for a little while when they don't sign up with us, because some people are guarded, but we still engage with them.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Any other comments, or feedback, or questions? Okay. If not,
Sylvia, just one last thing. Again, the plan that you have, including all of the supportive services, including legal services, I think covers or takes a different approach to this and sort of addresses all of the many issues that lead to homelessness and can cause homelessness. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time and putting something together like that.
Yeah, we do want to make sure we cover supportive services, which does include legal services as well. We are going to be releasing a home RFP to include the home program as well as the home ARP funds that we're talking about right now. So that will be going out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The RFP has been completed. We just have to have it reviewed internally by attorneys. But we want to go ahead and put that out there as well, because we want to be able to respond as quickly as possible and be able to pivot from one program to the other. Our target, as I said, is to fully expend the ESGCV funds and our annual funds, the ESGCV funds in September, and then the remaining ESG annual funds by the end of the year. So we will be doing budget modifications with our subrecipients to include our 2021 funds. And then moving forward, we'll look to see how we partner with New York State to deploy some of those funds here in Mount Vernon, since we're on the cusp of being eligible for ESG, depending on what the annual formula looks like. So 1 year we may be eligible, 1 year we may not. I think moving forward, what I'm going to look to do is just to partner with New York State. And just because that way I think we can be much more impactful. So we're going to look at having those conversations in the near future to see what we can do moving forward. Okay. Thank you all for your time, and feel free to email me any public comments. If you have any questions, we will be doing a meeting on June 9th. Elias, I will reach out to you to see if you can help amplify it out there for residents of the city. We do have a flyer out there. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Also.